All right, in this explainer, we're going to grab our detective hats and head straight into the engine bay. We are on the trail of a really common culprit behind some of your car's most mysterious problems, the fuel pressure regulator. So, let's start the investigation.
So is your car trying to tell you something's up? Maybe it's taking forever to start, or you're seeing black smoke puffing out the back, or does it just feel like it's lost all its get up and go? These aren't just random quirks. Think of them as clues. Your car is sending out a distress signal, and we're here to help you decode.
If any of these symptoms feel a little too familiar, then you are definitely on the right track. These are the classic textbook signs that something is off with your fuel system, and they all kind of point us in the same direction.
Yeah, seeing all these symptoms can feel a bit overwhelming, but you'd be surprised how often they lead us down a path to one single specific component that's causing all the trouble. So, let's follow the evidence.
Okay, let's meet our prime suspect, the fuel pressure regulator. Honestly, the best way to think of this thing is like a bartender for your engine. Its one and only job is to maintain the perfect pressure, making sure the fuel injectors get just the right amount of gasoline. Not too much, not too little. When this bartender starts messing up the drinks, your whole engine feels it.
So our investigation kind of splits into two main paths from here. The first one is when the regulator fails by sending way too much fuel. This is what mechanics call running rich. You see, a failing regulator can go one of two ways. On one hand, it can send way too much fuel, creating a rich condition that leads to stuff like black smoke. On the other hand, it can send too little, starving the engine in what's called a lean condition, and that causes a loss of power. Two very different problems, but they often trace back to this one little part.
So let's dig into the evidence for a rich condition. That black smoke? Yeah, that's literally unburned fuel. You might also notice a really strong raw gasoline smell, and of course, terrible fuel economy. The engine might even be harder to start when it's warm because it's basically flooded with fuel. And if you pull a spark plug and it's covered in black soot, well, that's another huge clue.
All right, now let's flip the script and investigate the opposite problem, running lean. This is what happens when our little bartender isn't pouring enough fuel and the engine is, for all intents and purposes, starving. The clues for a lean condition are different, but just as annoying. You'll probably have trouble with cold starts, and the engine might hesitate or even stall when you hit the gas. You'll feel a definite lack of power, and don't be surprised if that check engine light pops on with a code that says something like System Too Lean.
Okay, we've gathered our clues. Now it's time to interrogate our suspect directly. And we're going to start with some simple checks that don't require a ton of fancy tools. Here are two really simple but incredibly powerful tests. First up is the sniff and look. Just find the regulator and pull off its small vacuum hose. If you smell or see raw gas in there, it's game over. That's a dead giveaway. It means the internal diaphragm has ruptured and fuel is getting sucked straight into the engine. The second test checks if the pressure responds when you pull that hose. If nothing changes, the regulator is probably stuck.
And here's an awesome pro tip for anyone dealing with those long, frustrating start times. Before you try to crank it, cycle the key from off to on 3 times, waiting just a few seconds each time. What you're doing is forcing the fuel pump to build up pressure. If the engine then fires right up immediately, you've just found a huge clue. Your regulator isn't holding pressure when the car is off.
Now, while those other tests are great, there's one way to get a definitive, undeniable confession from our suspect. It's time to bring out the fuel pressure gauge.
Using a pressure gauge sounds complicated, but it's really pretty straightforward. You connect it to the test port on the fuel rail, start the engine, and get your reading. The most important part is comparing this number to what the manufacturer says it should be. But the real smoking gun is that last step, turn the engine off. A healthy regulator will hold that pressure nice and steady. If it starts dropping, you've found your leak.
For example, your car might be designed to run at 45 psi, or pounds per square inch, but it's absolutely crucial to check a service manual for the exact spec for your vehicle, because comparing your reading to that correct number is how you'll crack the case.
So here's how that little number on the gauge solves everything. If the pressure is too high, it confirms a rich condition. The regulator is just stuck, forcing too much fuel through. If it's too low, it confirms a lean condition, meaning the engine is being starved. The gauge gives you the hard data to back up all the symptoms you've been seeing.
This table right here basically puts it all together for your final verdict. Pressure that's too high or too low while it's running? That points directly to a faulty regulator. If the pressure looks good but then drops after you shut the engine off, the regulator is leaking. And hey, if the pressure is correct and it holds steady,
well, your regulator's probably innocent, and you'll need to look for other suspects.
So, there you have it. You've seen the symptoms, you've followed the clues, and you've performed the interrogation. All the evidence is laid out right in front of you. The only question left is, what's your verdict? You've got everything you need to crack the case.